My name is Jim Merich, and I've been a member of this church since its very beginning. My wife and I, Jane, were founding members, and we were part of the first 9 families that started this church. The Washington North Idaho Conference, as it was called in those days, it's different now. They looked at their membership all through the Seattle and Bellevue area, and they found that there were a number of Mercer Island people in those churches: Prospect, Pilgrim, First Congregational Church of Bellevue, etc. And they said we ought to have a church on Mercer Island, so all those people go there to church. And so they bought 4.2 acres of property, and that's where we stand right now. And then they put out a call to all those churches for couples who would be willing to talk about starting a church on Mercer Island. So the conference called a meeting, and it was either, I can't remember, it was either January or February of 1964. They called a meeting at the Duvall's home up on First Hill on Mercer Island. And Archie Hook and his wife Celia were there. Paul Sutley was there, the associate minister, and the people that the founding committee that I talked about here. And so we were all reluctant. We were firmly ensconced in our churches, and this was going to be a pretty hair-raising discussion to start a new church, and a lot of hard work, and we knew it. But by the end of that evening, we decided to do it. So it turns out that at that meeting, Conference Minister Archie Hook said that I have just the minister for you to start this church. And it was the other associate minister, Jim Gilliam, that he was referring to. And he turned out to be exactly the right man for the job. He was very smart, a very good preacher, and a very good organizer. And I joked for a long time that Jim Gilliam could come up with an idea and make you believe that it was your idea, and that we would carry it through. He had that kind of a talent. We met in the gymnasium of the Island Park Elementary School. We had our first service, I believe it was April 26th. Yeah, I think it was April 26th of 1964. And in between times, we had to prepare for this, so we all went out to everybody we knew and asked them to come to that first service. No strings attached, just come to the first service. The Bellevue Congregational Church loaned us a series of dividers, room dividers, that they used so that we could make a smaller enclosure than the big gymnasium that we're in. Walt Kiefer, and they gave us cast-off robes for the choir that they were now no longer using. Walter Kiefer built the podium, the altar table, and a chancel rail so that we could set up a church. And that first meeting, that first church worship service had 80 people there, and a lot of them stuck. And we started going to that church, and we did that for almost 5 years. We worshiped there until 1969. I was put in charge of a committee to study whether we really had the wherewithal to start a church on Mercer Island. So a gentleman called Kurt Privet was on my committee to determine these things. And we estimated what the growth of the church would be based on the growth of the population of Mercer Island, et cetera, et cetera. We talked about the finances and how they would be covered and all that. That book, the book that we produced, is still here in the church. So that's available to anybody that wants it. I'm sure it's in the storeroom downstairs. We accomplished that and started worshiping in the church, but it soon became realistic that we would have to have a building. Some people said it's too early. Why can't we keep going to church here? But we decided that the reason we wanted to build a church on Mercer Island was to serve the community. And if we were going to serve the community, we had to have a facility to serve that community.